Hello and welcome to this episode of the Opening Doors podcast. I'm Andrew McKenzie, Director of Operations here at the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association, or ONPHA as we're called. And today I'm joined by David Rourke from Round Table Procurement Services, who is also in charge of our ONPHA Enterprise program. So David, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is a little bit of our a catch up from our last version of a session where we were at our sector summit talking a little bit about the global economy and tariffs and how to purchase a little bit smarter, maybe purchase locally. Yeah. And then we had a beautiful power outage in the city of Toronto. So my fingers are severely crossed that somewhere figuratively crossed. Yeah. and we will we'll hopefully have no other interruptions. But again, welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. So let's jump right in, David, because a lot's been going on. And I think even since the last time we were trying to deliver this session to folks, the global economy with tariffs has had it's had a real impact on a variety of sectors, but I don't think the community housing sector has really delved into what our impacts are and what's happening yet. Yeah. And I know you did a good piece for us early days of the Trump tariffs around some of those things we got to be watching out for, but maybe just setting the stage and what's happening with tariffs, purchasing kind of at a macro level within the economy to set the table for what our sector needs to get ready for.
Yeah, sure. And I think back when we were originally delivering that message, people were still trying to figure it out. I'm not sure if the conspiracy theorists got a hold of why power shut down as we were talking about Trump tariffs, but I'll leave that for the broader public. But since then, I think a lot of our members have seen, whether proactively or reactively, the effect of the tariffs through price increases for sure. Again, just to put it in context, the primary thing I think our sector's concerned about, directly at least to our costs, are those counter tariffs that Canada has put on goods coming from the U.S. We're concerned, of course, for our friends and families who are trying to sell into the U.S. and the tariffs that Trump has put on. But the counter tariffs in response are really impacting the costs of our operations and capital plans in the housing sector. We're seeing that directly in what we buy from the U.S. We're also seeing a number of ripple effects, and for sure we've seen what the stock market's done, but just then the general economy and concerns about inflation and talk of a recession. So that will have impact to everybody, including of course our sector. We've seen the sort of ups and downs of the U.S. dollar and the Canadian exchange rate, and so that certainly impacts any costs that members have that might be in U.S. dollars. I think of things like software subscriptions and other things that you're paying in the U.S. funds. So, I think the price increases based on tariffs are one thing. The ripple effects are something else in addition.
Yeah, and I want to touch on some of those ripple effects because I think you're right. I think on the day of our last stab at this, it was Liberation Day. I think we was calling into the U.S. and then all of a sudden there was tariffs on penguins, and then we didn't quite know what was going on after that. Right. But there's kind of this when I talk about the trickle down effect, it's this preparedness, because when you start getting into these precursors of recession, etc. Now everybody's going to start looking at things differently, right? I start seeing people that are doing more advanced banking, more advanced savings, more advanced emergency planning. So how can our sector, or maybe more so, what can our sector be looking for? And actually, I'll pause. What is in and what is out with this tariff stuff too? Because I think there's a wide scale panic on everything. Like you got to kind of buy it all now or buy it before the tariffs hit. I know that you educated me on kind of, no, it only affects certain things and not certain things. So maybe start there and go down on that preventative or mitigative piece.
Sure. Yeah. It's about $60 billion worth of goods that Canada's applied a tariff to what's coming from the U.S. And it's quite broad. And I won't go into it here because it's a very long list, but there are links available and certainly not hard to find. And again, I think between the time when we first started talking about this and now, there's probably been a lot of our members who have been out there doing that research and identifying.
Right.
If you haven't seen price increases from your suppliers already, but I'll get to that one a little bit later. But yeah, $60 billion worth of goods. There's been threats of additional tariffs that could be applied if the American tariffs aren't pulled back. So have a look at those links. Make sure and I don't know if we can post those, but they're sure. Easily found for sure on the federal government website of what's in scope. But in terms of what we can do about it, I think that leads into what the first thing really you should be doing about it, and looking at where you're spending your money.
Yep. And
understanding what might be impacted and what might not be.
Okay.
The most obvious for sure is anything you're buying directly from the States. So if you've got, one of the first things we're doing with our clients and your members is where we can identify in their payables data, in their purchasing data, any of the suppliers that are actually based in the United States. Those would be the biggest candidates, of course, for direct tariffs on the goods that they're shipping to us here in Canada. So that's number one, is understand where you're buying your goods from. Some of that, by the way, might be from Canadian suppliers who are buying goods from the U.S. and reselling them to you. Yeah. So we can, just because you're buying from Canadian suppliers doesn't mean you're getting around the tariffs.
You got to really dig deep, figure it out.
That's right. So that's step number one. Step number two is, I think you want to work with those suppliers to try to mitigate the impacts. I always encourage everyone, you don't have to just accept whatever they're putting in front of you.
Yeah.
And some of that may be in just simply renegotiation. You want to be able to say, confirm that the tariffs are being applied. Because I think one of the things we're seeing, just like we did with COVID, by the way, is there's some opportunistic price increases here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where, because everyone thinks prices are going up, that they can just raise prices on things that aren't even impacted by tariffs.
We're good. Yeah,
Negotiate for sure.
Yeah.
And you're also negotiating, even if there are tariffs, it doesn't all have to be passed on to you as the customer.
Correct.
As the buyer.
Correct.
We're seeing lots of examples where our Canadian distributors are absorbing some of that. The manufacturer is absorbing some of it. Yeah. Everyone can feel some of the pain here. Yeah. It doesn't have to be just on the buyer.
No, and I think that's why I'm grateful that we have a partner like you that is delivering a program to our members.
Yeah.
Because I know that since day one, even before we've gotten any worry about tariffs, you've been always pounding the pavement on best deal, right price. And even more so now, you're somebody who, with your experience, has been able to kind of navigate through and have those conversations. So I'm pretty confident as we're looking at things. Like I feel like even though things might feel like they're going to inflate, you're somebody who's already on the front end of trying to put a pin in them or trying to bring them down, knowing that, hey, there's no, you don't have to make a fake inflation come about and make things more expensive for consumers.
Yeah, there are a few things that are really helpful in situations like that when you're trying to negotiate out of a tough situation. And one for sure is a good relationship with the other party, in this case our suppliers.
Yep.
So having that good relationship, as we do with Enterprise and our preferred vendors, part of the reason they're there is because we put the effort in to build up these relationships so that both sides are supportive of trying to find a resolution. So that's number one. Number two, as we all know, is leverage.
Yeah.
You want that volume.
Yeah.
And I know in talking to individual nonprofit organizations, they don't always feel like they have on their own, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
In the big scheme of things, they might be a relatively small customer, but that's why we say together we can do this a lot more effectively, and we have a louder voice in negotiating out of that. And then 3 and 4 would be sort of information and capacity, and this is what my team does. By dedicating sort of our professional lives to doing this. Mm-hmm. This is where we get to have long days like everybody else, and roll up the sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, and quite frankly, otherwise we wouldn't know how to do this stuff. And I do think that's the beauty of having the volume, the scale, and the experience. So really appreciate it.
And honestly, I think I've met a lot of ONPHA members who actually could do this very well. The trouble is they're doing it for your organization only, just you're a provider. And on top of all the other things you have to do is in your regular job. So being able to do this on behalf of the sector is really beneficial, I think, and frankly an honor. But it's something I think makes us a lot more effective in dealing with our suppliers.
Well, that's good, because that's, again, mitigating factors here with the new economy coming.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about is, what about that tangible work? Like, our folks are, and again, I had two questions here. One is that right now it's tariffs on goods, right? Yeah. So I think people got to understand there's a difference there, because, everything you do is not impacted immediately with these tariff changes, right? So I think, I think about a lot of our sector is moving into new technologies and softwares, et cetera. For right now, they're not there.
That's
correct?
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. And you're right. That was another piece that is in scope versus out of scope. In scope right now is all goods.
Yeah.
I do know it's a lot of consumables. It's a lot of food. You're seeing it certainly at the grocery stores. So anyone with a food program, you'll see that for sure. But it has to physically cross the border to have a tariff applied at the point of entry.
But now we're thinking about it. I look at some of those macro industries that are impacted. And this is where I was getting into our sector, right? Because it's like that, the seen unseen. When we think about automatically, it was the steel, the lumber industries that were going to start feeling this, right? Well, what about those projects? Like, all of our people are getting into more development, trying to build stuff. So what about your bigger and larger projects, things like capital and stuff like that? What about that side of the world? Like, how do we manage those things that maybe are in flight or not in flight?
Well, when you think about, like, in the work we're doing, as I mentioned, kind of step one is understand where we spend our money. And as we look at the data of where the sector spends their money, it's in terms of what's coming from the US, it's in a couple of major areas. One you touched on, which was the software and the tech piece of it.
Yeah.
As you said, if it's not a physical good, that's a digital product. So far, it's not being impacted, other than, as I said, the US exchange rate. So be careful there. But the other major area of flow of goods and flow of money the other way tends to be in capital equipment, capital projects, building materials, renovation, any engineered equipment. If you're getting a new roof air handling unit, rooftop unit, if you're getting new generators, even appliances. A lot of our appliances are coming from the south. So we're finding a lot of those capital projects are being impacted quite a bit by the tariffs.
So really kind of take a look at what you're doing and when you're doing it, and until you have that understanding of where things are coming from, maybe hold off, maybe. I'd say.
Yeah, we have been suggesting hold off if you can.
Yeah, if you can.
Often easier said than done. And the longer this goes on, the more I hesitate to give that advice, to be honest, because who knows? Yeah. We heard even recently with the Prime Minister's visit to the White House, progress, sure, but I think the other piece of feedback was it doesn't look like anything will be resolved really quickly.
No.
Who knows?
Right.
We could wake up with a whole different attitude tomorrow morning, and they're dropping tariffs. But the uncertainty is part of the issue. But I still believe that if you've got discretionary projects, anything that you might be able to hold off. For one thing, we might get into a position, if we are in a position of recession and prices do drop, that might be a reason right there. But I think if you can hold on through the uncertainty and delay any major capital projects, that would be an option for sure.
And then I'll also think about my earlier statement around how things like the economy, the stock market, everything is going haywire. And I know a lot of organizations are looking at even things that are policy based, and how do you make those policy based shifts to insulate yourself? I mean, at the government level. Like we're doing a whole Buy Canadian thing, right? And I think that's becoming more policy driven. And I think a lot of organizations have got to start looking at that as a switch too, right? Is to start getting into, who are you doing business with and how, so that, even if everything over the horizon clears out, you're never going to be in this threat or worry that, we're at the whim of some other country that's going to set the global trade market on its head. So what do you have to say around managing policy within your organization?
Yeah, well, it's we talk about the mitigation strategies, what you can do and understand where you spend, but ultimately one of the major changes we're seeing across the country is this refocus on buying Canadian, isn't it? And it's wonderful to see this patriotic movement. I think there's some risks associated with it as well, because we're going to put some strains on our domestic supply chains.
Yes,
that's okay. It's hopefully a manageable problem. But really, the sentiment is there to say, yeah, let's be careful how much in the future, tariffs or not, we're dependent on our neighbors to the south, or frankly any other country. So buying Canadian is a good strategy. I think weaving that into your policy, your own procurement policy documents, is a good way to sort of make that become reality, and have your staff, your operations designed around putting more emphasis on buying domestically. And we're seeing, speaking policy, we're seeing the recent change with the Ontario government's release of an additional policy to attach on to the broader public sector procurement directive, which many of your members would be subject to for some of the larger providers, whereby basically the provincial government saying, no, you can't buy American anymore for any new procurements, regardless of dollar value, after March 4th of this year. Should not be from American companies, unless they have 250 employees based in Canada. So that's the important.
Yeah, there's some domestic.
Then they're no longer American anymore, I guess. But frankly, thank goodness, because it would create as much as the sentiment is understood and positive, it can create some challenges in limiting some of your options, especially in that world of software we already talked about.
Yeah, don't want to handcuff people, but I do think, and I also echo the fact that I'm proud of it, and I think it's a good thing. But I think it's a larger thing to think about around future risk, like just mitigating it, right?
Yeah.
And I think Toronto's also doing that. I live in Toronto, and I think there's been this trickle down of that mandate into the municipal politics as well. So not sure how that's going to change around the province and all the 47 service manager regions, but it could be a thing to look at. So again, looking at your policies is a big thing down the road for sure.
Yeah. So, and we've your policies and your resulting procedures should reflect your intention. Yeah. We've always been promoting having your policies. And again, processes, like how they actually manifest themselves, become to work themselves into your operations. They should reflect your values as an organization. Absolutely. And that's, I think, frankly, one of the things that differentiates nonprofit procurement from the for-profit sector, even public sector, where each organization has their own set of mission, vision, values. They have their own set of fundamental philosophies and values that are important to them at an organizational level. Yeah. In this case, we're adding Buy Canadian to that, which is great, but have those reflected in your procurement policy, in your procurement processes. It's something I think it's really important for our sector. So
maybe to stay on that vein, I know that you've done a lot of work on the enterprise side. So I know for people who have enrolled in the membership in the ONPHA Enterprise program, they've seen some subtle changes. Maybe talk a little bit about that, because I know you're doing a lot of work on identification so that it's a little easier, right? So, I mean, that's part of why we put the program together, to make things easier. Yeah. But from an identification perspective, what have you been doing with respect to, again, working with the suppliers, plus making it very clear that these are local?
Yeah, we're trying to help reflect the fact that, frankly, this has always been an important piece. I think when we select our preferred vendors, let's face it, there's always been a lean towards those that are a little closer to home, for sure, whether it's provincially or nationally. So that thankfully was already in place, and as we move forward, it certainly will continue to be. Yeah. But just to help members who are joining the enterprise program understand where they're buying from, we've done what many of the grocery stores are doing. Yeah. We see it when we go out shopping. You'll see on the site clearly identified with the Canadian flag logo those that are suppliers based in Canada, which is a majority of them, certainly. Yeah,
absolutely.
And then within those suppliers, they're doing the same. They're taking on some of the same activities. Where Staples is a challenging one, for example, where Staples Canada has tried to go very public and saying, we're Staples Canada, we're a distinct entity from our friends in the US. That's great. We still think of someone like Staples as a big multinational company. Right. where they're trying to help out is they're identifying on their own site that we use when you register for a Staples account under Enterprise, and preferential pricing and core list products and everything else. Wonderful program. They've added now the logo for their products that indicate which are Canadian based.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
So
again, you can't turn the ship on a dime. But those little small things are very helpful, especially for people who are enrolled in the program. So maybe we'll pause there.
Okay.
Because I think that this is the first of many for us. I think from a what's going on and how to purchase smarter. I know that a lot of members, and I've seen an uptick and an uptake on our enterprise program, whether it's registering and checking out or people making calls. So I'll remind folks that if you're not an enterprise program member, it's free to all members of ONPHA. We just want to make sure you're in the site and we're making sure that you're getting the deals properly. You can sign up for enterprise at rtps.ca/ONPHA_enterprise. So I'll do that one more time. Mouthful. rtps.ca/ONPHA_enterprise. And, throughout the year, there's going to be a lot more of these. I think I want to keep this conversation going. So whether it's more podcasts, webinars, I know for sure there's a big ONPHA Enterprise Pavilion coming up at our conference, which is something unique this year. We'll be highlighting our vendors, and they'll have access to you and your team. So I look forward to those types of activities, because I'm sure by the time we get to end of October, early November, either the smoke is cleared or it's got more dense. So either way, we're not sure how that's going to go. Yeah, no, that's right. So we'll be there with the preferred vendors at the conference for sure. Looking forward to that. And speaking of access, before the conference, or if anyone isn't able to make it, we're accessible through that ONPHA Enterprise site anytime. The idea wasn't just to have access to discounted or preferred supplier relationships, which are there, of course. But we're posting any materials that we produce that support, trying to navigate through tariffs, for example. So other helpful resources, and contact information is there if you've got any challenges related to purchasing or your suppliers or anything else. No, absolutely. I've seen that as the biggest evolution of our program. I know our program's been around for a while, and we've had it rebranded, but this version of it is, I know through member feedback, been the best because of that aspect. We haven't had in-house procurement experts before. So I think that's been the big thing, is that in some instances, it's not just about going and finding that thing that you're going to buy. It's like, I need to do something and I don't know how to even start. And that starting point has been really good to have you guys as a partner, because I think that's been a big change for our members, is like, hey, I need to procure a big window renovation job or some kind of a massive boiler capital project. They can call you, get those kind of starts. So no, I really appreciate that enhanced level of service that you and the Round Table team have been able to provide through the program. Yeah, like I say, it's a pleasure to do it. We just find a lot of organizations in the nonprofit sector, in the housing sector, just can't afford to have this a procurement team in-house. I mean, it's not typical. Many do, of course, if you're larger, but really, that's why we create these programs, to have access to. Essentially, it's your virtual purchasing team, and if we can help in any way, please let us know. Absolutely. Well, thank you, David. And before I go, I'd be remiss I missed my big splash last time. I was going to do a big announcement on the ONPHA conference. I didn't get a chance to do so I'm doing it now. As I said, I was alluding to it earlier. David and the Enterprise team are going to be there, but the tickets for our conference, which is at the end of October into the first day of November, so that's the 30th, 31st, and November 1 in Toronto this year. Tickets are on sale. We had Super Savers for members about a week and a bit ago. Those were gobbled up very quickly. And now we're in our early bird phase. So if you want to get tickets at what I think is the best rate possible, please do so. There's limited amount available, 300 tickets, or until July 31st of this year. And I know that at the time when you see this, there'll probably be only about 240 tickets left. So please go out and get your tickets as soon as you can. But I look forward to seeing folks at our conference in the fall. But other than that, thank you for joining us on Opening Doors podcast.